Willie, Willie, mercy, baby, this is Shaska Willie. You're listening to Broken Kayfabe with Frankie Seabreeze and Ariel Bologna and Cheese Sandwich. They're like Coca-Cola. They're all over, baby, on whatever network that you find it on, baby. This is Navy SEAL Body Guy, and you are listening to Broken Kayfabe with Frankie Seacrest, Ariel Agbalog, and the Brothership. Now that half-wit, Shaska Willie, better not step on this, or I will step on him, Jack.
Welcome to Broken Kayfabe, the unofficial after show of Breaking Kayfabe with Baldrick and Barry. Ariel Ronaldo Agbalog, third time's the charm.
Yeah. How are you, Frankie?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I just got off the phone or video chat with my girlfriend. We were watching like Food Network or something like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we always do that, or some sort of like food related show. But yeah, I just got off the video chat with her, grabbed a little small cup of coffee real quick, and now I'm here.
Good. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being my wonderful co-host. I'm excited for today because today is going to be the Springsteen episode with Chris and Max Spiker, the Spiker brothers, and Matt Crowder, your Bay Area brethren.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt has also been doing these wonderful intros for us. Of you have heard Shaska Willie.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard Navy SEAL Body Guy?
What? No, I haven't.
I didn't forward that to you. All right.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll look forward to that.
Well, we don't have a whole lot to talk about, being that it's been 24 hours since we last recorded. And the reason that I wanted to record before the weekend is I wanted to get 2 episodes in this week so we can get to Rick Nathan. I'm recording with Mark Russ on Monday, so I don't want to have too many shows backed up. I want to get them out as soon as I record them, really. But I tend to do 2 or a couple of weeks just so that I don't have a lull in the programming, because I know that our 65 listeners are just clamoring and waiting to hear which brother shipper will be on next.
Absolutely. give the people what they want.
Yeah, well, if we did that, we'd probably just shut up and not talk.
That's true, and we probably put our clothes back on while we're recording this.
Oh my gosh. Yes, put our clothes on. So we had text a little bit this week, and one thing that we talked about was I think it was a tweet that was saying that Aubrey Edwards was contradicting herself with the she said she wanted to be invisible in the ring, and the focus on the competitors. Mm-hmm. And then they showed these clips where she was reacting. Well, what was your take on that? Do you think she is trying to make herself the star?
At first I didn't. I was just chalking it up to probably that's how she is, or like when you said I'm animated or something when I'm talking on video. You see me using my hand gestures and facial expressions like that. That's just how I communicate in person. If I'm having a conversation like this, I was thinking that she's of the same when she's doing her referee job. She's animated, but then I watched a video back again. You know how it had video clips of her reacting to things and overreacting to things. There are parts of that video where she's looking directly at the camera, like right after she reacts to something, and that changed my mind on maybe she is trying to ham it up in front of the camera for herself, but I mean, I don't know, but it did change my mind. I thought she really was like trying to, I guess show off or something.
Well, I would say I don't think she's any more extra than I don't know. I think that she is doing probably what she's directed to do. And I think I would hope that in a company that's on TV, that if someone didn't like what she was doing, then they would tell her.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think that there's wrestlers who go over the top more with things that they do and looking for the I don't know, the recognition than she does. I think the referee needs to react to some things that are going on. I don't think they need to just stand there and be statues and wait to count to 1, 2, 3.
Right.
And I've always enjoyed her in the ring when I've watched her. So I'm going to give her a pass, and I enjoy watching her. I think it's just like any other thing in wrestling, right? It's that you might like the WWE and you might not like AEW. It doesn't mean you got to shit on AEW. You might not like what the WWE is doing, but it doesn't mean that you got to shit on it. And so somebody went out of their way to put that and to kind of stir shit up, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, it's like it's a small snippet of some of the reactions she does. I mean, she's been in like almost every match, it seems. So yeah, I guess those little things, those little quirks that she does, it doesn't. I don't notice it when I was watching AEW before. I didn't really notice it, but I guess they were just nitpicking stuff. Yeah. So I'm sure every referee has some little quirk they do. But yeah, this person just seems to be nitpicking and trying to, like you said, stir some stuff up.
Yeah. There's a buzzing. Do you hear the buzzing?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my dad doing yard work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, man. Don't you think you should be out there helping him?
Nope. I worked all night. No, he gets peculiar with yard work and everything. So
oh yeah.
I
thought it was something wrong with one of our computers here.
No, is it really loud?
No.
Okay.
No. It was just I could.
Yeah, he's it's the gas blower, leaf blower.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was gonna buy one, a little electric one to dry my car off after I wash it, so I don't, scratch the paint or anything. I was watching a YouTube video, and they're doing like this touchless car wash with the pressure. Was it the pressure washer? And then the guy took out this small electric leaf blower and started like air drying the car, so it doesn't leave any swirl marks or anything like that. Like it's totally touchless, so it came out looking really nice. So I might want to do that.
Okay. All right. We call that lawn maintenance car washing. Lawn tools car washing.
Yeah. So happy Asian American and Pacific Islander month.
Is it still or was that April?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the buzzing's getting louder. I think he's around here. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna mute for. You want to talk amongst yourself?
Yep, I will talk amongst myself.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it is May. AAPI month. All right. So one thing that I did want to talk about is I want to thank Jeff and Barry for allowing us to kind of do this after show to the podcast. That is very gracious and generous of them, and I hope that we are doing them proud. And that being said, let me go ahead and put over the CWF Legends Fan Fest, which is coming. This is number 8, by the way, to Lutz, Florida on June the 4th. We've got the former WWF champions Axe and Smash. Demolition will be there. They'll be hosting the 2-hour dinner Q&A. You also know them as Mass Superstar and Crusher Khrushchev. Also, you'll have a cup of coffee with Medusa Michelli, or as she was known in the WWE, Alundra Blaze. Also will be WCW Superstar Glacier. I think his real name is Ray Floyd. He will be doing the after party where he is talking about his time with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, baby. And in between all of those fun events, you'll also get to hang out with my favorite part of the CWF Legends Fan Fest, the Brothership. Ariel, you back? Nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead.
Oh,
keep
cool.
going. You could talk about the origin of Demolition or something, or the Repo Man or something. Just keep going.
All right, cool. I'll keep going.
Okay.
So also being there will be Steve Kern. He was skinning the WWE. Leilani Kai. She was also Leilani Kai. Bill Alfonso and the Saint. I think those are a couple guys native to this area. The Saint, also known as the Cuban Assassin, Fidel Sierra, Dave Sierra, and he lives down here in the old Treasure Island town, which is just down the street a couple miles from me. And let's see, what else do I want to talk about with that? We've got the Joe Christie Memorial CWF Legends Fan Fest sponsorship attendees. We've got Jason Ward coming from the Pacific Northwest, and Tony Botts coming from my old stomping grounds of Clarksville, Tennessee, baby. So if you have some extra money in your pocket, please come out to the CWF Legends Fan Fest. It is June the 4th. It goes from 11 to 9 at the Residence Inn by Marriott, Tampa Suncoast Parkway at North Point Village. The address 2101 North Point Parkway, and that's in Lutz, Florida, just north of Tampa. And the guys are going to be going out to a couple places to eat Thursday, Friday. Fat Marks love to eat. So you can get your grub on with the Brothership.
Cool. That was one long ass commercial. I like it.
Well, we owe it to Barry and Jeff to plug it. And I'll tell you, it was I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll keep plugging it until June the 4th. But it was one of the best times I had in my life. Met some great people, including the legendary COVID positive Chris Zaha.
At least he's being positive about something.
Yeah, for once, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. Well, let's go ahead and let's go to this long conversation with a couple of people who absolutely love the boss. Nope, not Magnum TA. The
or
boss.
Sasha Banks. And not Sasha Banks either.
Is she called the boss?
The legit boss.
Oh, the legit boss.
I guess. Whatever.
We're going to the OG boss, Bruce Springsteen, with Mac and Chris Spiker, along with Matt, the Body Crowder. All right, everyone. I am super excited to have on three other brother shippers. I've got Papa Spiker, Chris Spiker, and all the way from San Jose-ish, Matt Crowder. What's up, Matt?
Well, you're not far off. Do you know the way to San Jose? And I usually tell people, like, just go south on 101 and you're already there.
What's the town?
I'm in Santa Clara, which is just north of.
Damn it, that's right.
They neighbor right next to each other.
I should have known that.
The venerable Ariel and bologna and cheese, baby. I will not go into Shaska Willie right now, but
yeah,
that'll be before the show for till the end of time, which is great because Jason Ward probably deserves the utmost praise for that, because that just lit up everything, and I'm like, okay, I guess I got to do this, and we're just gonna do it. So I sent Frankie a couple promos, and then there'll be a few more coming his way. I've told him that like 3 times, and then I forget to send them. But at the same time, like I told him, I'm like, you're gonna have a few that are just gonna work.
The video is the best part.
Oh yeah, it's just
I enjoy watching your facial expressions.
Oh, it's funny. I think the last one I sent you was literally I sat in my car for like 10 minutes, and it was I
I did 2 crappy takes because it's just like you get rolling and then you just stop at like the most inopportune moment. I'm like, okay, I'll stop there, and I'm like, we'll get it again. It was like my first appearance where when I was with Travis, I tried to do it, and then at the end, that's what ended the episode, which was great. Just worked that way.
So on this episode, I'm probably not going to say a whole lot because I don't have a whole lot to contribute. And if I look like I'm not interested, it's because I probably am not. I'm here to record it, and I'll be here.
Well, Frankie, that's sort of sacrilegious, dude.
Well, my dad used to tell me, he says, it's better for the people to think that you're dumb than do you open your mouth and show them that you're dumb. So I'll let you guys who are the experts talk about Springsteen, and I'll just sit back and go, yeah, I love Brilliant Disguise.
That's a great song.
That is a good song, yep.
Great tour.
So Papa Spiker, won't you start us off here and tell us, since you're the elder, of how you got into Springsteen, and we'll just let that conversation go from there.
Well, I got a little bit into Born to Run because it came out when I was like a freshman in high school, like way back when, like 75. So I knew a little bit about him. I really got into him when I was in Germany. That was right around when The River came out, which that's one of my favorite Springsteen albums. But and then it kind of grew. I came back to the States, and I actually have a friend, Kevin, who is a huge, even bigger Springsteen fan than I am. And we just started listening and going. We went to a couple of shows together, and, so it's just kind of grown on me. And as is with most people who like Bruce Springsteen, his music in a lot of ways becomes the soundtrack of your life. It seems like there's a song for any sort of mood, and it's never been more true for me than just on his latest album release. Letter to You has been like, I don't know, it's been a lifesaver for me. It's, but then there's a angry, rebellious song like Badlands when you're feeling rebellious, and it's like, screw you world, but there's just a song for every kind of mood. And I think that's, I wouldn't go so far to say as he's the voice of America, but I would say that he is, one of those voices that can make the everyman, he can relate to the everyman in all of us.
Anybody? Anybody want to chime in there?
Yeah, I can go. A lot of what Max said is true. I mean, I became a Bruce fan at the beginning of the new century, for the most part. Like people my age, we got into probably the hits, and we're talking like Born in the USA type hits, and then Born to Run, which is timeless, which has always been a staple of classic rock for, at this point, almost 50 years. And I remember, I love Glory Days. I love Dancing in the Dark. I love Born in the USA. In my younger days and into high school a little bit. And then just after high school, I had happened to watch VH1 Year in Review 1975. And the Born to Run album came on, and I heard Clarence's sax for the first time. And
Jungle Land.
I'm like, what the hell is this? And I need more of it.
It's the biggest.
And I was working retail at the time. And a friend of mine was a huge Bruce fan. He became a fan about the mid-90s, about the Jode era. And he went to the reunion shows, the last 2 shows of the 20th century in Minneapolis. And he got MIB'd. And for those uninitiated, MIB means Men in Black. So
good seats.
So he was like in the last 2 rows of the Target Center. And they have guys with extra tickets. If you're by yourself or maybe with a friend, they'll go, hey, you want to sit on the floor? Yeah. So he got MIB'd. I think it was the first night. And yeah, I got to sit like third row and, had a great time. And, he'd tell me stories about that. But, before I'd heard Jungle Land, which was the song that Clarence had that, great sax solo on, it didn't resonate. And then you got into the music. So once I got that and I heard Jungle Land, and I'm like, this is just amazing. He burned me every single album. He burned me Tracks, which is the 4-disc box set of his outtakes, which I claim there is no band out there anywhere that has outtakes like Bruce Springsteen. There are some great
Amen, brother.
Bowie.
Yeah.
And a lot of things was just like, it was amazing to me. The summer of 2000 and 2001 was just, it was wall to wall, just getting into stuff. I mean, to me, realistically, I listened to Tracks even before listening through all the albums, which I think gave me a deeper appreciation for his music and just how impactful it was. And I'm just, some dumb 20, 21-year-old kid at the time. Actually, no, I take that back. I'm a couple of years younger than that at the time. So I was 18, 19. And, I was leaving high school, didn't really know what to do, but that music really spoke to me through those 2 years. And then obviously, as, it happens, The Rising comes out, we have 9/11, we have The Rising comes out the next year, and then a tour starts. So,
yeah,
all that other stuff.
And
then I think after that, I remember getting bootlegs. My first bootleg was the last night at Madison Square Garden for the reunion tour. And then I watched the DVD set live in New York City, which was amazing. Like, I remember hearing the first drum beats of My Love Won't Let You Down, and I was hooked. I was literally an addict at that point. I could not get enough of it. And then to kind of pony back onto The Rising, that was my first tour. I went to a show, and I remember the date exactly, September 30th, 2002. Got floor tickets, got in line for the fan run line pit at the time. At 9:30 in the morning, there was already 100+ people there from the night before from Fargo, and they had people that would run the line. And every couple hours they would do a check-in, and they'd write down your number. So I think my good friend and I, we were 149 and 150. So as the day progresses, local media is there. Like, it was insane. You would hear stories of people saying, "Oh, I'm from England. I'm from Jersey. and I'm just like blown away. Like, this one man has brought people from so many other places to my hometown or my home state. And it was funny because the lady from England actually got tickets from someone just right behind us. They did not know each other. They just got tickets because they loved Bruce Springsteen. And that to me was just blown away. And I didn't know what to expect.
I've referred to sorry to interrupt. I've referred to the show as the best United Nations gathering you're ever going to go to. Because when Papa Spiker and I saw him in 2009 in Philly at one of the last Spectrum shows, he did Darkness on the Edge of Philadelphia is what I was calling it. Still my favorite Springsteen show. When we were in the line for the pit, there were people from Germany who would come over for all four shows, people from England and people from New York and from Canada. It's like, holy crap. It's like, and that was the first time I really experienced that. So I always say it's the coolest United Nations gathering you're ever going to see. So.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then I remember the show, 5 songs into it, you couldn't have told me what the hell he played because I was so entrenched and so entranced with just the music. And then it was a great night. And then this one stuck with me. It didn't at the time because I thought the guy was insane. But he told me
we were leaving the floor, and I'd been right in front of Bruce, like 5 people deep the whole night. And it was a great night. And he told me, he's like, hey, doesn't this make you want to like go travel and see him? And I looked at him like, yeah, haha, like, just being nice. And I'm like, that dude is absolutely insane, but this is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So that was my start with Springsteen. And it's been an amazing journey. I met my wife because of him. I got to meet a lot of people because of it who are still friends to this day that, I don't get to see very often, but I consider them just as much as part of my, family and friends as anybody that I'm related to by blood. And that's an amazing thing. We've had a few pass away, from cancer and some other stuff, which, was really sad, and, it hit me hard, but the times I got to spend with them seeing Bruce Springsteen will always be paramount memories in my mind. Getting me in a car to see other parts of the United States, changing my worldview, is what Bruce Springsteen did for me. And I would not be talking to you guys right now if it were not for Bruce Springsteen. No joke. The man has done that. And I know that sounds like that's a little heavy, and I'm like, no, it absolutely is the truth. And it's been an amazing ride. I can't wait till, hopefully, knock on wood, he does tour next year. I know there's been rumors here and there for the last year or so that he wants to go out, and but we still are in a pandemic, so we're just I'm hoping maybe get my little daughter too, because she's part of this deal too, and my wife is always up for a show. So I mean, that's kind of where I started. I have many stories that I know we'll probably get into, but I'll pass it off to Chris to take it home.
Well, I was born into it, obviously. As Mac will tell you, I was 3 weeks old when Springsteen played his first stadium show in the United States at, what was it, RFK Stadium in D.C.?
RFK Stadium, August the 5th, 1985.
To kind of give you an idea, I was born in the middle of Born in the USA hype. And as I was told, the only person more identifiable than Springsteen in America was Jesus Christ at that point. And, and it just became a thing. Like, I grew up with it and stuff like that. Of course, too young to appreciate it. Trying to figure out who these other guys were with the other band tour when I was younger, and then grew into it. And, Dad got to see a couple of shows on the reunion. He saw 1 or 2 on the reunion tour. And then my first concert experience was the summer of 2003. I said, it has to be the pilgrimage. So we did the entire thing. We did Asbury Park during the day. It was the second show of the 10-night stand at Giant Stadium, the famous 10 nights at Giant Stadium. And we did the whole thing. We did Asbury Park. We did Freehold. We did, we pretty much did everything. So I remember it was a beautiful summer Jersey night, and the Rising tour where, it was back, Springsteen was back to megastar status. And Dad will tell you, we're at the very top of Giant Stadium. I did not clap and rhythm with Max the entire night, but I didn't care. Okay.
My son has no rhythm. Okay. None.
I still don't, but that changed my life, and said there was no one better doing this. And I'm glad that I only got to see the classic E Street Band lineup together twice before Danny passed. But that was awesome, getting to see him in Jersey doing his thing. And then, he came out and, at the beginning of the second encore, he sits down to do My City Ruins, and he talks about Asbury Park. And we had just seen it for ourselves, what he was talking about. So it really hit home. And then, and it was just, when you get to hear Jungle Land and Rosalita in your first Springsteen concert, it's like the equivalent of a nice religious experience. So, and that's, and here we are years later, and we'll eventually get to me taking Mrs. Spiker to her first Springsteen concert, which is one of my favorite memories. But that's pretty much my kind of getting into it story. So,
yeah.
Well, that was also Brenda's favorite Springsteen show too, and she became a fan after that.
Yeah, Chris, you kind of remind me of my wife's first show. So her first show was in San Jose in like 2007. She got Incident, Detroit Medley, and Something in the Night on the first show. And I looked at her, I'm like, you don't fucking deserve this. And I hate you. And she still holds over me. She has the Detroit Medley because I have not heard the Detroit Medley I think I'm at about 50 shows. And
oh, you poor guy.
Yeah, I'm bitter. I got Twist and Shout, and I've gotten other stuff, and trust me, by the end of this, people go, stop being a fucking Bruce snob, just enjoy what you got. And I'm like, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I have traveled these miles. I have done all this stuff, and I want this. That will be the end. Every other thing I have gotten, like I got Something in the Night later on, but no, I totally can empathize when someone gets like a insanely good first show, and you're like, I had to go like 12 or 14 shows before I got that.
So the song, there's one Holy Grail song I've been hunting now forever, and it's Incident on 57th Street. The last show I saw him at in Philadelphia, the second night in the 2016 River Tour outdoors, is the only night that stretch of shows he did not play Incident. And I was
you were so angry.
Well, however, though, we did, but here's the trade-off there. There was a trade-off. Christine and my Uncle Beaver got to hear their first live racing in the street later that night, which on a hot summer night, and it just kept going and going. It's like the coda to that is one of the greatest Springsteen's ever written. Because Roy just kept going, and it was like it raises you up, and it's one of those things that like gets you. Like the way it keeps building to the end of the song, it's like, damn, son. So I have heard somebody else do it though. So kind of veer off course here a little bit to tell this story. So my dad and our family, as a matter of fact, are very good friends with a Springsteen cover band called the B Street Band. They're very popular in the Jersey area. They're all great friends of ours. So they played Christine and I's wedding day. And Dad goes, I have a surprise for you. So beginning of the second set, they come up and they go, Chris is like, this is a dedication from your dad. I got to hear them do the solo piano Incident, which then they did the little code, and all of a sudden the band comes roaring back and they went right into the Rosalita. It's like, damn, man, it's like, if I never hear Bruce and band did it, at least I got to hear it once somewhere.
I have actually heard Incident and Rosie, I think, twice.
You bastard.
Well, I lucked out. Funny. One time was in Des Moines, Iowa in 2009. What? I would have never in a million years thought Incident in Rosie would happen in fucking Iowa. It's like BFE. Yeah, it's in Des Moines. It is a major city. But yeah, those are that was a fun time. That was the only arena show that was non-album towards the end of the Working on a Dream tour that I got.
So my favorite Springsteen album is Born to Run. But a very, very close second is Darkness on the Edge of Town. We got to see Darkness done at the Spectrum, one of the final Spectrum shows. It was at that point, there had only been two announced. I was able to snag Dad and I general admission tickets to go see him in there. We were so psyched. I said, you know what, if we're not hearing Born to Run, Darkness, that Darkness run is still one of the greatest. It's probably the greatest run of Springsteen songs at a concert I've ever seen. Although I thought of one the other night I was actually listening to it earlier. But the Darkness run, the whole show, when it opens with Thundercrack, you know you're off for a ride. And then we got the only live performance ever of What Love Can Do. We heard him sound check it. It's like, wait, he's never done this before. He's never done it since, and I don't know why. Because it kicked ass.
And
yeah.
Matt, you know how much of a saxophone song Sherry Darling was, right?
Absolutely.
Well, they did Sherry Darling with 3 accordions and no sax that night.
Because that was when Clarence was starting to slip a little bit, showing.
Yeah.
But
that was tough to see towards the end of Working on a Dream, where literally if you were at a right angle they literally were lifting him on a lift up to the stage, or Bruce was holding his hand to get him up, and he literally was seated for, I'd say, about half the show. And then when it was getting up to him doing solos and stuff, I mean, it was rough to see, but, it was still great. Like, as much as I love Jake Clemens, there is no saxophone.
Oh God, no.
Just booming soul into a saxophone than Clarence Clemens. Like, you can, the more you hear it, the more it'll become pronounced. I mean, if you're just hearing it once or twice, you probably wouldn't notice the difference. But as the more you see it and the more you hear it, it's definitely, that was the way it is. Yeah, no, I lucked out on the album one. I didn't see Born in the USA or Darkness, but I made out pretty well. I was in the last night for Buffalo for Greetings. I got Wild and Innocent.
Oh, wow.
I got the
So that was
River.
Clarence's last show.
Yep.
I did both nights at the Garden in 2009. That was my 5-show run where I literally drove from Minneapolis to Cleveland to DC to do Born to Run. Then I made a little then I went down to Winston-Salem, but the show was in Charlotte. Bruce, friend of mine, I stayed at her house. Then made a detour down to South Carolina to see a really good friend of mine who I went to high school with, him and his wife. Girlfriend, now wife. And then drove up. And it's funny you mentioned the B Street Band, because the night before I hit the Big Apple was the night I met the infamous B Street Band at a casino just outside of Philly. And then I ended up staying.
Had to be Sugar Creek or something like that.
I forget. That's probably the only thing I forget.
Sugar House.
I remember parking was a disaster. And then almost losing my car, which was even funnier. But and then I stayed the night in Glendora, New Jersey, with another Bruce fan who graciously gave me their couch for the night. Then there was a backup on one of the bridges at like 12:30 at night. I've been driving all day. I'm exhausted. I just at this point, I want to get some sleep. And then I parked my car in Secaucus, New Jersey, and ended up taking the New Jersey Transit into the Port Authority and staying in Midtown for the weekend with one of my friends in Manhattan. Got to stay at his place for a couple nights and did both nights for Wild Innocent and the River, which was amazing. And then I probably saw Born to Run album probably 6 or 7 times within that time frame. So I'd seen it in DC, Charlotte, Cleveland, because I went to Cleveland after the Garden. That's where I did meet my wife for the first time.
Aww.
And that's and that's a great story too. I'll always have that story, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever happens. But it was a fun time. That was where a lot of us got together. The other 4 shows I'd pretty much done. I'd seen a few people, but 2 out of the 3, I think by that point I had seen just by myself. And then I did Milwaukee, and that was another Born to Run one. And I think out of the last 10 shows, I did 7 out of 10 for pretty much from November till just before Thanksgiving. I think I missed out on Nashville and Baltimore. And Detroit, I think, were the only 3 shows I missed.
Wow.
I was the man possessed at that point. I mean, to me, if you really... So from 2007 to 2009, I think I saw him. And adding in the Pete Seeger 90th birthday concert at Madison Square Garden in May of 2009, I think I saw him 29 times.
Wow.
I just couldn't get enough of it. It was enough to get me away from stuff. I literally worked. I went to Bruce shows. I went to Bruce shows when I could figure it out. Because at some point when you see him, you want to see him in his element, like Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden to me is the epitome of seeing Bruce Springsteen, like how he is. The Garden is the Garden's the Garden. It's a wonderful place.
Jersey was pretty sweet, though.
Yeah, I've seen him in Jersey too. I think I saw him. I think I only did it once. I did Giant Stadium, the 3-night stand, 08, and then the next day in wonderful Foxborough, Massachusetts, the stadium leg in between after the arena leg, and then I think he had came back from Europe, because that's the funny thing is I would say the last like 4 or 5 hours where it starts out slow in the US and then he really cranks up in Europe, and then it comes back for like the last 2 legs in the United States where it kind of splits between the stadiums, and then it'll go to arenas where it really, when you get towards like when you've seen them at the beginning of the tour, it's like they're getting warmed up. It's probably 2.5 hours, 2:45. And then by the end of the tour, you're getting 3, 3.5, 3:45, and you're really pushing it. And you're just having a great time. And then it gets more evil during Born to Run, where your hands go numb by just shaking them for like what feels like 10 minutes is like, about 2 minutes. And I'm just like, shit, I can't feel my hands anymore. Stop it.
I was like, Dad, and I was like, Papa Spiker, when we did Citizens Bank Park first night in Philly in 2012, it was Labor Day weekend. So we got lined super early, went there during the day. We got our wristbands and everything like that. I'll never forget this. We got wristbands there. We were like 85 and 86. Dad goes, that's a good number. He goes, you were born in 85. He goes, that's great. So we go across the street to Xfinity Live. We get some drinks in our system. We're feeling good. We wander back, and you make friends with everybody like that. And we couldn't hear.
We're making deals that we would all be family if we were like, part of the lottery and won the lottery, because they wouldn't split families up. So we were making deals with everybody who we were as far as their family members, so nobody would get left out.
So
I remember that.
So we ended up, we couldn't hear the number, and we thought they said like 1900 and something, meaning we'd go to the very, very end. Like we'd be there all day and we'd have to shuffle in the very back, which when you're in, and this is going to lead to probably one of my all-time favorite hilarious Bruce Springsteen stories that has to do with Bruce. So, but we heard the announcement and people in front of us like, no, he didn't say 19 something. It was a number. We were like 50 people. Like, I shit you not, we were in the first 50 people. So we go running in. We end up on the rails right in front of Stevie and Gary for the entirety show. Now, keep in mind, if you're doing that, you're stuck standing for hours upon hours. But then when he hit the stage and he starts the Summertime Blues, he's like, welcome to the end of Summer Spectacular. Kicks in the Summertime Blues, and you're just going. And 3 hours and 50 minutes later, you're drenched, you're covered, and he finishes Twist and Shout, and you're wondering how the fuck he's still going. How the fuck he is still standing there and, blowing sweat everywhere. And I mean, that was a great night. I mean, we got like Lost in the Flood.
Snot rockets probably too.
Yeah, the water spits and everything like that. And the horns are blowing everywhere. So the best story I can tell about my father to the Bruce Springsteen show, there are actually 2 of them. One of them wasn't at the show. This one's at the show. So my father's favorite Bruce Springsteen song is Waiting on a Sunny Day. So,
hey, Chris, you're my son, but fuck you, okay?
So of course, he plays it. He goes from Shackled and Drawn, which he did right in the Sunny Day around that part of the tour. So Bruce is sitting, and my father's sitting there in the front row in front of Gary and Steve with his fingers in his ears. They're pointing at him and laughing. Like, literally, Stevie's pointing down at my father and laughing, and he's pointing to Gary and looking down at him, and he's laughing at him too. And I go, oh God, Bruce is going to come over. He's going to sing right in front of my father while my father's doing this. And it's the most, and as he started over, and he stopped. I'm like, oh no. Please, for the love of God, do not do this. Thankfully, he went the other way. But the fact that the E Street Band acknowledged, I'm like, maybe that's how Steve and Gary really feel about this song. But
well, at that point, it had been played to death. I mean, it was a staple. It would be an excuse for, let's just say, people who brought kids to rush them close to get them to sing, which is fine, but some people took it a little too far. One story I can tell is Tulsa on the Working on a Dream tour. This woman literally battery rammed her way to try and get her kid on Sunny Day, and it was just bad. And I'm just like, lady, I understand you want a memory for your child. That's great. But not at the expense of everyone else's enjoyment.
But does the child really want that memory? The kid standing in front of her.
Yeah, no, that's another thing too.
She has no idea who the fuck this person is. She has no idea who Bruce Springsteen is.
Right. Well, it's like, yeah, the Tulsa show is funny because it's like it was early on in the tour, and there was just so much crazy shit going on because, well, they didn't, like, everyone got in the pit because they literally didn't have that many people, and it's Tulsa. It's not a Bruce hotbed. And he'll make it a good show because he'll be motivated because, oh, not all these people came to see me. I'm still going to give you my best. And I remember there was this family with a teenage son, and there were a few drunk women, let's just say. And he was on crutches, and he went like full on sprint to this drunk chick, started just slobbering all over her, just like kissing her. And she was reciprocating too, but then her friend pulled her off, and then her parents pulled the other kid off. It was hilarious. And I'm like, this is like probably 2/3 through the show. I'm like, Jesus, what the hell else is going to happen? It's just crazy stuff like that. But that's any rock show. But with Bruce, it's kind of comical because it's like, things happen.
So I have to check in with our intrepid host over, Frankie. How you doing over there, bud?
Hey, man, I'm great.
Are there any like bullet points or any questions you wanted us to kind of talk about, or anything you wanted like specific, I guess maybe any questions you might have, because I know you said you're into Bruce, but you're like, I'm going to leave it to the experts. Is there anything you wanted us to kind of talk about, or any,
Nah, bro, that's not me. You guys do the talking, I'll do the recording, then I'll do the editing, and I'll put you all together.
Well, I don't want you to think we're leaving you out, though.
I'd prefer you leave me out.
That's not what the E Street Band Brotherhood is all about. Everybody's inclusive. Listen to some of his music.
Well, I'm letting dogs out, letting dogs in, giving dogs treats. I'm here doing my own thing. I'm just here to record, and sometimes I get on here when people are on here and I just talk way too damn much. And I don't want to do that this episode. I just want to lay out, be quiet, let you guys talk, and share in the Bruce Springsteen E Street Band love, and just have a good time doing that. So I don't want to screw it up.
The one of my favorite memories was the Madison Square Garden show. So 2016 River Tour, I got my father and my stepmother tickets to go see him in Pittsburgh opening night, which they got to hear the only cover of Rebel Rebel ever done by the E Street Band. So my future wife and myself, it was her first Bruce concert. So we're going to make it awesome. We're going to go to the Mecca, the world Mecca, which not only is a concert Mecca, but if you ever perform Madison Square Garden, you got it made. So we hop a megabus, we have a few drinks, we go. There is a German beer hall right next, or not right next to, a couple blocks from Madison Square Garden. So we're sitting there with a family friend of ours, one of his coworkers. We're sitting there drinking these giant ass German beers. And I remember they brought us this thing called a shot ski. And it was 4 shot glasses in a row, and they were all tall shots of Fireball. It was the best shot of Fireball I've ever had. So, when German beer went you and everything like that. So then you go and you're standing there in Madison Square Garden, and like everything in New York, you have this experience that everything is bigger than you at that point in time. Bruce comes out, the band does their thing. They start with Meet Me in the City tonight. And it's something special when you see it click in the person's eyes that you're with, what they're witnessing. And she leaned over, I will never forget, she leaned over me during Ties of Bind and said, "This is amazing." I said, "Oh, just wait." And her favorite song is Two Hearts. Her favorite Springsteen song is Two Hearts. And of course, the river, you go through the highs, you go through the lows, you get the really depressing stuff. And I remember looking at her during Drive All Night, and there was just something there. It's like that magical, transcendent moment in Madison Square Garden. You look at the person you're in love with, and it's like right there. then you get in the wreck on the highway and you get depressed again.
Did you buy her some shoes, Chris?
Yeah. So
Inside Bruce joke, if you really follow the lyrics.
yeah,
That
Yeah.
for the rest of the listeners out there, not to go too inside.
I mean, it goes from Drive All Night into Wreck on the Highway, which goes from a really high point to like one of the saddest songs the dude ever wrote. And of course, you know,
Well,
then
you start off that last side of the album with Ramrod, and it's like, holy cow! From there, it's like a slow descent into like manic darkness. You know.
which, you know, would later, I believe, that influenced Nebraska a lot. I mean, that whole thing, I believe, the end of that was the direct influence into Nebraska. So, for those of you who've ever been to New York City, so after the show, Christine, you know, after we get out of there, Christine's like, holy shit, that was the coolest concert I've ever seen. Yeah, it was pretty high up there on my list, too. So we're looking. It took us till 2 o'clock in the morning to find New York style pizza that night. And that's the story I remember most. Last stop before getting on the train to go back home to find that New York style, which, if you ever had pizza, that's like the Bruce Springsteen of pizzas, right? So.
You will be Brian Last's favorite person for putting over New York style pizza.
I love New York style pizza. There's actually a New York style pizzeria not far from our apartment that is like perfection, like absolute stellar. I mean, the Chicago style pizza is a little bit different, but it's not considered pizza, more of a pie. That's a whole other story for another time. So the other fun story. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to let Mac talk about Springsteen for a little while, just because it feels like I'm talking a lot. But I want to hear some of his favorite concert memories and everything like that, because I like hearing him talk about it.
Me?
Yeah, you're the only Mac.
Okay. Well,
Mac,
I couldn't tell whether you said Matt or Mac, and you know.
Yeah.
We won't talk about the other Matt in my life. So anyway. So I guess my favorite. There's two favorite moments of being at the shows that I can remember being just totally otherworldly for me. And Chris had mentioned that Philadelphia Spectrum show towards one of the last ones he did, and we've talked about Racing in the Streets, and that version of Racing in the Streets was like hypnotic for me. That coda just it seemed like it went on forever, and it was just fabulous. It was mesmerizing. And then the other one I can think of that was really otherworldly is he did an acoustic tour after he released Devils and Dust, and we were in Pittsburgh, and we actually snuck in. We actually snuck in, and he was doing sound check, and he hadn't done One Step Up yet during that whole tour of shows, and he was doing a sound check of One Step Up, and it was just beautiful, absolutely beautiful, you know, because it's just him and the guitar and his voice. You know, he kind of got pissed once he found out we were all in there, but honestly, you know, a lot of my joy. I mean, I saw him the day after he turned 50, and that was a really rocking show. That was also at the Spectrum.
What year was that?
Show, that was 1999. He was born in 49. So he'll be 73 this year.
The hurricane that postponed the shows, and then he came back and blew the hell out of Philly.
Yeah, he did. Well, it was a rescheduled show because it had gotten flooded, and it was supposed to be in the Core State Center, but they got moved to the Spectrum because, you know, of the Sixers or the Flyers, you know, some loser Philly team was playing in the Core State Center that night. But, you know, so I loved watching Chris, his first show. It was me and my wife and my stepdaughter and her husband and Chris. It was me and Brenda sitting together, Marcy and Andrew sitting apart from us, and they were sitting together, and Chris was sitting all by himself. Well, Chris was swaying to the music, out of rhythm, clapping out of rhythm, but I've never seen my son happier. Well, I take that back. Up to that point, I had never seen my son happier.
I was just about to say, up to that point.
And I was just hoping he wasn't going to keep his promise, because he said that night, if they played Jungle Land and Rosalie this night, I'm going to piss myself. Well, they did, and thank God he didn't piss himself. But anyway, and then Brenda, my wife, it took some work for her to become a Springsteen fan. She was a little older than me, and she grew up in a household where it was like Lawrence Welk, and she was a big band person. Like, she loved patriotic music like John Philip Sousa and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, getting her into Springsteen, but she loved it, and she grew to love it, and so watching her enjoy it was fun. The first stadium show back in '85 that was actually my second Springsteen show. It was in DC, and the day the tickets went on sale, there was such an abundance of phone calls that the White House phone lines were jammed. And that was incredible. I was scared shitless at that show because I was sitting underneath a scoreboard, and the scoreboard was shaking, because that's how loud it was and how much people were like just screaming and yelling. But, I just, it's been a joyful experience for me, and, I got, once again, also at the Spectrum show when we were in the pit, was the famous I grabbed Bruce's ass, moment for my son. He was doing a crowd surfing, and Chris goes, I grabbed his ass. I said, okay.
Look, I said, you know what? It's like, it's right there. It just kind of fell because he was doing the crowd surf, and, it's like, okay. And all of a sudden it just kind of fell. I'm like, okay, there's his ass in my hand. There we go. Okay. Carry on. I'm like, wow, I just grabbed Bruce Springsteen's ass.
Chris, did you cup or squeeze?
I'm pretty sure I just cuffed it, but even still.
All right. Well, that's good. I think anything else. I've heard stories of. That's usually my standard answer if they've touched his ass. I'm like, did you cup or did you squeeze?
And I was like, what? I was like, wow. I go, that's an interesting experience. So, I remember I was telling the story to somebody, and like, you know what? It's like, he probably thought there was some hot chick there in the pit, and here it was, this excited 25-year-old guy grabbing his ass. I'm like, nah, fair enough. The Devils and Dust tour he mentioned, also just a phenomenal show. That was such a great tour. Like, I love so many boots from that tour because he did so much stuff and experimented. And we're walking by, we're on our way to the venue. I believe it was to the venue. It was either to or I forget. But there's this homeless guy sitting out there in the street. He goes,
oh my God.
Matt goes, we're walking by, and the guy goes, how did the conversation go? Because it ended with him telling the homeless guy to go to hell.
Well, the guy goes, you got some money for a meal? I said, I don't have money for a meal, but I'll take you inside and buy you something to eat. No, I'd just rather have the money. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And he said, well, then you can go to hell. And I said, you first. I mean, it was just a spur. I mean, yeah, it was. Looking back on it, it wasn't one of my finer moments. It wasn't one of my more graceful things, but it was a off the cuff reaction. It's like, it's like, holy hell, guy! I just went and offered to buy you anything you wanted to eat. Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, there's been, but and I would be remiss in saying that one of my son's greatest gifts to me was when Bruce's book came out. He did a book tour, and Chris got me in to meet Bruce with him, and that was also in Philadelphia. And we had our pictures taken with him, and Chris, I got to say, gee, thanks, and that's about all I could get out because I was just, stone cold, like enamored. But, so we each had our pictures taken with him, and that was, I mean, it was like 30 seconds, boom, boom, bang, and gone. But it was like, it was a priceless moment, and I owe that to Chris. So, I mean, I've shared a lot of the Springsteen moments with Chris, and, it's been wonderful. And it has been a father and son thing for the most part. And, I'm glad, I was able to introduce him to something that he loves so much.
And so I have to tell that story because that story came about because of kindness of one man who I'll never forget. His name's Matt. And I haven't talked to Matt since that day in Philly at the library. So when he did the book signing tour, there was a limited amount of dates up and down the East Coast around. He might have done further than that. I know they were primarily in Jersey, Philly ballpark, that kind of type deal. And I got on a waiting list and I found out, hey, this many people, you're on the waiting list that got in. I'm like, oh, that's freaking great. I made the mistake of telling Mac, and Mac's like, why can't I go? Why shouldn't? And I'm like, okay, good point. So I call this guy and say, Matt, can you put me on the waiting list? Can you put my dad on the waiting list? He goes, I'll see what I can do. He goes, I don't know how many more are going to get in. So I get a phone call the next day. Him going, that story really stuck with me. He goes, I got your dad a ticket. He goes, that story of you guys sharing this is really cool to me. So I got to shake his hand the day we went. I found out who he was, and we went over and we said, thank you. So of the million things you could ask Bruce Springsteen, I'm sure he's been asked every fucking question in the man, Was Terry a guy in Backstreets? Did Rosie ever really come out? Thunder Road, the greatest thing you ever written. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road? I'm sure all these things probably cross my mind. Finally get up to him and I shake his hand. He looked at me, shake his hand and say, Bruce, thank you. And I said, your music brought me and my dad closer together. He looked genuinely stunned for a second. He just looked in my eyes. He's like, wow. He goes, that's really cool. Like it was a genuine reaction. I will never forget the look in his eyes. He got that twinkle in his eye the moment I said that to him. And then, of course, you read the book and you watch the Broadway show, you find out about his relationship with his father. And it's like, wow, it's like maybe I did strike a chord with him that day. He probably doesn't hear that. And that's what I remember the most about that day is him just being kind of awestruck with that short interaction we had.
I thought he'd be bigger.
Yeah, and he looked really old that day, too. Like, he was looking like tired that day. But I'm like, you know what? And the funny thing was we had just seen him perform outdoors 3 weeks ago prior, and he looked so much like a superstar. He just looked like a dude in a white shirt and a leather jacket. It's like, damn, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Bruce and random acts of kindness, I think, go hand in hand together. And it's not just Bruce. I think it's his fans. I can go back to Devils and Dust. I remember getting tickets in St. Paul. And at the time, I didn't have a credit card. I was probably in my early 20s, so still at home. And they were very, very particular. If you weren't going to the show and the person's credit card was used that was not going to the show, they wouldn't give you tickets. So I get to the window, I get will call, I'm going to get tickets. And my dad goes, he dropped me off, whatever else. And they weren't going to give me the tickets. So I'm like, well, this is stupid. So, and my buddy who was going to come to him, I call him up, like, hey man, they won't release the tickets. So a gentleman who I still don't know his name, and wherever he is, thank you. He said, hey, I got a couple tickets left over. And one of the ticket people at the venue's going completely apoplectic, like, what the hell are you doing? This is illegal. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of this between us. Like, you have something better to do. So I paid to get he actually gave his tickets for us, I think, below face. So I ended up going on the floor. My buddy ended up getting another one, but he looked incredulously at my father. My father had no business wanting to see Bruce Springsteen. My dad was in his, at that point was probably late 50s, maybe even, probably mid 50s. This is like, no, thank you, but I appreciate what you did for my son. And the thing I regret the most is I never got his name or figured out who it was because I got to go to the show. It was, I'll harken back to Devils and Dust when Mac had said, oh, yeah, he was pretty pissed you guys were in there. I jokingly call that Cranky Bruce because it seems like his solo shows, he doesn't want the raucous, E Street Band fans. He's ready to have music fans that be quiet, respectful, and all this other stuff. And, you know, sometimes it goes the other way where he just says, you know, fuck it. You know, I don't care what the hell you expect. I'm still bitter at one of the guys who yelled out "Glory Days," and it cost me Cautious Man at the XL Energy Center. I'm like, you motherfucker! I could have gotten Cautious.
Yeah,
and you.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I agree.
I'm gonna find you and cut your dick off for that. That is not okay.
And then feed it to him. Yeah.
And then he. There was a slaying St. Paul officer who had just died a couple weeks ago, and he debuted "Good Man Is Hard to Find" in Pittsburgh. That's like the end of it, but that was one. And then I remember 2 years later, the first time I went to Chicago to see him, and it was at the United Center, and I think it was the second night. I didn't have enough money for parking. I had parked, and then you pay afterwards. And I'm like, fuck. I don't have enough money for parking. So sheepishly, the guy who I did not even know, this guy's from New York, he's like, oh, dude, here's a 20. I'm like, dude, seriously? He's like, okay. I'm like, give me your address. I will pay you back. I promise you I will pay you back. He's like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm like, please give me your address. I cannot take it. I appreciate your kindness, but just happen to not have cash on me, just enough. You know, you fill your fat face with food before the concert because to me, you're going to need your energy. And I can go to another story where I did not eat before the show and it was pretty rough afterwards because of all the energy you expend being on the floor. But I got his address. I sent him a check. I'm like, and I wrote him a nice little note. I don't know if he ever got it, but those are things that I never would have expected from people who I didn't know, but we share a love of Bruce Springsteen. And those are things that I'll never, ever forget. And those people, they're out there. And it's a beautiful thing when you get a random act of kindness from a complete stranger. And the only thing you have in common is going to a Bruce Springsteen show. And those were always met. I mean, they're fun stories now to tell. But at the time, you're just like, wow, that's really cool. And then as time goes on, it just becomes something you can tell other people, and just a cool little story you can have. And those are moments I just treasure, and just I hope for more at some point.
I mean, those same people that you see at the concert are the same people you see in the pit during Born to Run, or you see with their hands up in the air during Born to Run. You know, it's that kind of a communal experience where I have said the one thing I've yet to do, because I've met him, I've made physical contact with him, I have, done the front row. The only thing I've yet to do is touch that guitar during Born to Run. If I do that and hear Incident, I will never have to go to another Springsteen concert ever again. Will I? Probably. But there's something about it when the house lights go up, and this may sound sacrilegious, but it's been described to me this way, and I agree with it. Springsteen concerts like church, and Born to Run is communion.
Yeah, it is a revival. I would go more towards that because that's the way it is.
It's that common,
Well, Jungle Land's more like a church service all by itself.
Yeah, I'd like a 10 and a half, 12-minute song, depending on how long it goes, depending on what tour.
Or I mean, if he turns up the lights during the entire encore, like the last tour, it's like the lights were up like the entire like encore, like Born to Run through like Shout, the lights did not go back down. And when you're in a stadium full of people, you see them bouncing up and down the Shout. I'm like, wow.
At that point, he just wanted to rush through it because, I mean, they're older but that's the thing. There are shows I went to towards the end where he would be doing 7 and 10 and 11 song encores. It's fucking ridiculous. Like, I think the two shows that I can think of off the top of my head, Buffalo was one, because I think that was like that. That was
Stevie's birthday too. Yeah.
And then the Harley Fest show in 2008 in Milwaukee, that was a 12-song encore. The show was almost 4 hours. It was But the fun thing is there was hardcore Springsteen fans sprinkled in with bikers, essentially. Like, I remember meeting a few from like Western Wisconsin, and I had two of my Aussie friends. They tried to bargain their way into the inner circle of the pit, where I think you either worked for the beer company that was sponsoring it, or you knew a friend of a friend, stuff like that. And they're just going up and down. I'm like, I'm happy I'm there. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna yell and sing at the top of my lungs. I don't care how big of an idiot I look like to, Joe Bag of Donuts right next to me or anything else. But that was an amazing show. That was where he ended with Born to Be Wild. I think that's only that was the second time he had ever played it. The first time with the E Street Band, I think, as far as a standalone song. I'm not counting Tunnel of Love tour where he interspliced it into Light of Day, but that was an amazing experience. And you trust me, I still hearken to the arenas, even though when I did see him Springsteen on Broadway, how emotional the show is. As a fan for, I've been a fan for now, it's 20 years. There's other people that dwarf me on many of occasions. I know many people that have seen him, they're in the triple digits when it comes to shows. They've been following. I know a guy in South St. Paul that has seen him over 100 times and met him multiple times. And, has amazing stories that, he shared. And that's always the fun part when you get together with Bruce fans I think he started seeing him in 1975 and saw shows all the way up to the last one. And, has seen some of the greats over the years. So, I mean, it just, in an arena, he is unmatched. There's just more intimacy. A stadium is great. And it's amazing to see people during like Born to Run and the really big party songs. But it can kind of get lost in a big cavernous stadium, but it's still a lot of fun. But, it is truly, it's uplifting. It can bring you to think. It can move you on so many levels. I remember Wrigley Field, 2012. First time I heard Jungle Land after Clarence died, I bawled like a baby. My wife and I bawled. I would have never thought that would have happened. I cried because it was just overtly emotional. And I remember being in Greensboro, beginning of the Wrecking Ball tour, where one guy he heard the first sax and he just sobbed for like 3 songs in a row. Had people coming up to him saying if he was okay. And, I don't know of too many artists that have that sort of power to make the audience really get emotional, really think, really feel. I mean, and there is other artists. I mean, I'm going really in deep, but there are things that make it so much fun. And the deeper you get into it, when you get the deep cuts, like I joked about not getting Cautious Man. And I mean, yes, I was genuinely upset, but I can joke about it now because it's funny. But you chase a lot of those. Like I know friends that have gotten, I think one of my really good friends who's in the UK, he saw the Hyde Park show where they pulled the plug on Bruce when he was with Paul McCartney.
McCartney doing Saw Her Standing There. Oh my God.
He was there that night. He had followed him through Europe to get Take 'Em As They Come, and he played it there. And I'm like, you bastard. I'm like, I love you to death. You're a bastard. Yeah, that's probably my, if we could probably delineate into probably your favorite outtake, it's between that and Iceman. Take 'Em As They Come.
Iceman's great. Oh, man, that's a great song.
How that got left off Darkness on the Edge of Town is beyond me. I'm still.
If you look at anything from probably, I'd say 1976 to probably 1983, 84. Good Lord, there's so many songs you can pick from. I mean, there's so many.
But how great is it that he is so diverse that you listen to Western Stars in 2019? I can actually remember where I was the first time I heard Western Stars. It was actually midnight on a train. I waited, and it showed up in my Spotify. I listened to it on the train to my first CWF Fan Fest trip. And I'm listening middle of the night, like you're driving in this train in the middle of the night, and I'm going through North Carolina, South Carolina. And I just remember that. And it's so different than anything he's ever done. Even I think it's even more different than like Nebraska or Tom Joad. And then he comes out with a Letter to You, and it's like, holy shit! It's like this is the dude. And I want to hear what's on this tracks too. They've been talking about for years. I can only imagine what is sitting in the vault still to be. Like,
they just need to release everything at this point. I'm just a greedy bastard that just wants every piece of footage or audio stuff that there is. I mean,
and Bowie still releasing. They're still releasing David Bowie stuff. They actually just released now, but his outtakes not real longer. That is fucking awesome. And they're still releasing Hendrix's, stuff. They're still finding, and he's been dead for how long? Hendrix and Prince and stuff like that. These guys have been dead for years now. Hendrix especially, and it's like you're still digging in. Now I'm wondering if Bruce is going to sit there. He's 73, and going, how much time do I have left to release these kind of things? I mean, we were blessed. I mean, If I Was the Priest is one of the best songs he has committed to an album in quite some time. Like that is the one I cannot wait to hear if and when he tours again.
I'm still waiting for the obligatory Ghosts, either start of the show or maybe the end of the set. That to me is the best song on the album, in my opinion. But the thing that makes me the saddest is that sax solo, and I think Clarence. I'm like, if fucking Clarence is still alive, that thing just wails beyond belief.
He actually released Ghost 2 days after my stepmother passed. And that was like, between that and Letter to You being the first two songs off that album, they were like fantastic. It was like bittersweet almost in a way. And you listen to it and you hear it and it's like, wow. And then you listen to the rest of the album. I mean,
Chris heard it first and he warned me. He goes, it bookends and you're gonna cry. And it's like, yeah. I sure did.
Because
like I had said earlier, I mean, that album is like what's the soundtrack for the last 2 years of my life. And, the first time I heard See You in My Dreams, I was like crying my eyes out. And now I can smile, so it helps heal you. And it helps, it's of course how you do anything or how you look at anything, I guess, with, but it's an amazing album, and it came out just in the nick of time. I mean, I actually played Letter to You at Brenda's funeral, and we played Letter to You at Brenda's funeral, and it fit right in.
So now's a good time to reveal a spoiler that Matt Crowder is one of the guys that calls Jim Rotolo every Friday night and asks to play Burning Train. He's one of those
I love
guys.
that song. Oh, that's my favorite favorite song off the album.
Burning Train in the Ghost is what in the Badlands should be the opening 3-pack for the next tour. I guarantee we'll forget about it. We'll bring it back full force. And if you bring those three together in some sort of chain to open that show, it's like you'll get the full E Street Band. You'll get that full force. And it's like, oomph. It's like if that doesn't grab you, nothing in that show will.
Yeah. Well, Badlands by itself is just so great live. I'd say, I mean, if you listen to it early on, from like Darkness all the way through, say, like Born in the USA, and then when you go through the other band and then Reunion era, where it took on a life of its own thanks to the Swedish, where they add like the during the
oh yeah,
which is amazing. Like when you get a really good crowd, like you're talking Madison Square Garden, you're talking Philadelphia, you're talking New Jersey, you're talking Sweden, you're talking Norway, you're talking
Spain. Don't forget Spain.
Yeah, no, a friend of mine went to Camp No and was there. I think it was the last night of the stadium run, and he forgot his fucking wallet after the show because he was so drunk because he had such a great time. And then the next day he goes to the pub and finds it, which is still funny. But he was there, and he's like, "This is pretty much the closest thing to seeing God in human form." I think that's what his words were, or at least something near that. I don't want to cast aspersions.
The moment that sold me on, I needed to see it like how much my dad talked about beer, watching live in New York City and the middle of Badlands, right after Clarence takes the solo, and him and Bruce are just standing there together, and the crowd is just, and you feel that. I'm like, wow. Like, I remember that, like, clicked. Like, the two of them standing there together, and that's the story. You know, that's the legend.
Yeah, when it gets loud and then it doesn't end after the first one, it goes like twice. Then you know it's like really.
So whenever you get it twice, we got it twice at the Spectrum show, I think, and it just kept going. And you know, it's like they were eating it up. You know, the Philly crowd. That was a special night because they were supposed to close the Spectrum, then Pearl Jam kind of swept in after that, and it's just like the Philly crowd to me was the best Bruce crowd.
Yeah. I have not seen him in Philly. That's the only hotbed I never saw him in. I've seen him in Boston. I've seen him in New York. I've seen him in New Jersey. I dare say the Carolinas are up there too, because I have seen him in Greensboro and Charlotte. Those crowds are really good. Absolutely. You know, a friend of mine actually, I don't know if you remember the 08 shows. She got the banner up of her. She blew up her license plate that says "Boss Time," and she got that up there. I don't think it was the 08 show. It might have been the 09 show. But yeah, those crowds surprised me. I had told the story about my first time in the Carolinas seeing Bruce on my first appearance on the podcast, but and I'll share it with you momentarily. But those crowds are really good, but Philly just never worked time-wise for me.
Well, if you're feeling across the country, we can all meet there and we will make
Philly would be amazing. That, I mean, I wish I could have seen them at the Spectrum, like just for history's sake, because I love all the old arenas, like the old Boston Garden, Madison Square Garden, you know, the Spectrum, all the history and stuff in there, and you know, seeing whatever it, you know, whether it's wrestling history, music history, whatever the hell, just to be in venues like that are always fun. The LA Sports Arena is another one. The Dump That Jumps. I was at the last show, at a Bruce Springsteen show, I should say, at the Dump That Jumps in 2016.
I was going to say, was that the night Morello played with him out there? Or was that?
I don't know if he played with Morello if he did. I think like the last two nights, but I saw him in 2012 in LA, and that was when I think Morello was with him or did a guest spot. They did Tom Joad. My wife actually saw him in LA before we were living together, I think in 2009 when they did do it. Well, I mean, that Joad version is fucking amazing.
I mean, that song, like, to me, the Racing the Street that he mentioned back to Merlin, but the one Nose and Nose with is, I will tell you which one's better, was hearing him do Ghost of Tom Joad with Morello. Hershey, we're actually coming up on I was listening to the Bootleg today. It's almost 8 years ago to the day that I got to see that. And that was great. There was a run of songs in the middle of the show that will rival Darkness in the greatest I've ever seen. It was E Street Shuffle, followed by Lost in the Flood, a solo piano for you, Proven All Night with the 78 Promised Land. I'm like, holy shit. As soon as he finished Promised Land, we went to Mary's place. I said, holy crap, we just got the you know, that 5-pack was worth the price of ticket and everything alone, and this, you know, $13 beer I'm drinking.
Well, the Mary's place, at least he wasn't building a house like he was towards the end of
Oh my God, yeah, the never-ending Mary's place is from
I enjoy probably the best iteration is still the Rising Tour for Mary's Place, but
Oh yeah, with the band intros right there in the middle.
oh yeah, no, it took over for the 20th and 10th Avenue Freeze Out on the reunion tour.
Yeah, coming up on that was the 2014 show was just fizzled like so hard. And the thing I remember most, one of the hardest left turns I've ever heard in a concert. Well, there are three that come to mind, and two of them are actually the exact same song coming out of the album. And Matt Crowder, you've heard it live. The Spikermen have heard it once live, and we've heard it live. But the one that night was he came out and did a solo surprise. In Hershey, he comes out with a guitar and does surprise acoustic. Then he goes right into the wall. I'm like, oof. And then goes into Born to Run. I'm like, Bruce, you're jumping. But the one that I'm thinking of is after you hear the album, you end the album runs with Darkness on the Edge of Town and Wreck on the Highway respectively. What follows that? Come on now, Dad. What followed Wreck on the Highway that night in New York, Matt?
Oh God damn it. I'm trying to remember. I'm drawing a blank right now, and I hate myself for it.
Waiting on a Sunny Day. It's like,
oh yes. Yes, I do remember that. That was like letting the air out of the balloon. It's just like you get. Well, here's the thing. It's like I think if I remember that night, the night at the Garden was that fucking night was amazing. I met Jon Stewart that night too, that's an even funnier story. But actually not funny, but just dumb luck that I happened to be close to a lot of fucking famous people that night, just by happenstance.
Mac and I remember they had a beach ball pop on stage during the beach ball made its way on stage during the end of the show right before Born to Run. Bruce grabs it and just rips it up. Like he just goes backstage, you see him ripped off. He changes his guitar, comes running out, and there's like the angriest Born to Run I've ever heard. He was so pissed. You just see his beach ball fly through the air. So when you said letting the air out of the ball, that's what it made me think of.
No, absolutely. Well, it's like
a beach ball go by.
No, you can see when he is not so happy, Bruce, and then he kind of just
about something
pushes through.
It's like, what am I not entertaining a few assholes?
It's drunk people. I remember, I vividly remember the second night at the Garden where he was going around the pit, and some dude literally he was so drunk, went to literally make out with Patty, and his security guard just fucking decked this dude. Like, you don't do that. I mean, and that was also that night too at the Garden for the River Night. Was during Dancing in the Dark, these two girls get on his little perch in the middle of the pit, and they're just go-go dancing. Like, they don't fucking care. There's no one else there. There's just them. And Bruce is going, "Go, girls, go." And he's just laughing, and security's like, "Get the fuck down." And they're just looking at him like, "I ain't getting the fuck down. You got to pull my ass down." And
Bruce said, "Go, I'm going."
They were happy. I mean, but that was an amazing night.
So you were talking about Small Worlds earlier at the Springsteen concert. I just thought of another story. This actually happened. I found this out fairly recently. It was in the past couple months. So one of the last shows I saw him at State College on the River Tour, we're on the floor in the pit. And I remember it was a great experience, great night. You know, I got to see my first ever full band Born in the USA because it was the night before Bernie Sanders rally in State College. You know, a whole bunch of rowdy college kids. It was fantastic. Great night. So we are making kielbasa with my in-laws a couple months ago. And I'm talking to this guy, and we just start talking about music, and we talk about Springsteen. And he shows me a video of where he was. Matt, I kid you not, these people who are, I think, distantly related to my in-law.
Ray's cousin.
Was that Ray's cousin?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Ray's cousin.
It's hard to tell with them. It's hard to tell with them, as you know. So it turns out that Christine's distant cousins were standing right next to us in the pit, because I have a photo from that exact moment that video was taken. The exact same thing. I said, "Hold on a second." I said, "Hold that." So I pull up the picture, and he's like, no shit. I go, yeah, you were right there. I go, we were both right there. I'm like, how is that a very small, how messed up is that? How small it is? Hello, Frankie's doggy. I'm seeing you on the video. Hello.
This poor old blind dog is just annoying the hell out of me. I just drugged him, so
I just looked on the Frankie carrying a dog around. And I'm trying.
He should be calming down here a little bit, but he just keeps whining at my feet. So,
Oh,
I'll add another small world thing. So this is in regards to my wife and me.
the queen.
So before we met, so I had told you that I went to the Foxborough show in August of 2008. So I didn't know this till probably 2 or 3 years later, but my wife was at that show. So my sister-in-law would always go to summer camp in Maine, around like the middle of just after school had got out, or college or whatever, or high school got out, they'd be camp counselors at Wohelo in Maine. And her sister had done it, and her younger sister did it too. So, and this is just as her fandom started, really. And she got a ticket and got into Foxborough. And I don't know how many of you have been to Foxborough Stadium, how shitty it is to get in and get out. There's one way in and one way the fuck out, and it's terrible. It's like, who thought of this? No one thought of this. Everyone's just going to be angry and beating on their steering wheel when they want to get the hell out, and it's 12:30 at night, and it takes you 2.5 hours to go 10 miles to get to your fucking hotel, and literally want to go to sleep after standing for like 5.5 hours. But she was at that show, and then, you know, we met in Cleveland in November 10th, 2009. And she told me later, oh, yeah, I was at that show. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Really? Because I was in the pit that night. A friend of mine, I had sold off my floor ticket to one of my Aussie friends. The night where we caused controversy, where we on Backstreets. So for the listening audience at home, Backstreets is, you know, the official, unofficial, you know, Bruce Springsteen. It was a fanzine of Bruce Springsteen since the early 80s, and, you know, has a website, you know, has a forum and stuff. So one of my Australian friends, his dad had a saying, rock to the fuck. Like, you're not going to a level, you're going to the fuck. It's going higher than you ever thought possible. So we thought, we're going to go to Walmart, we're all going to wear these shirts. Some people were disgusted at us because they had kids there, and I get it. And then and I'm like, I'm in my mid-20s. I don't care what the fuck you're saying. I'm like, I'm going to rock to the fuck. I'm going to have a great time. And people are looking at me like I just have smoking turds hanging out of my mouth. And I'm like, what are you doing? And we had a great night, and it was humid as hell. That's the thing. They had severe weather, and like the Tron behind the drum kit, the winds were so strong that it was swaying back and forth. And I'm like, do not cancel this show. Whatever the fuck you do not cancel this show. I've came too far for this. And you know, thank God there was like a little bit of downpour before the show, and then it made him wait longer to come out. So I think he came out about 8:45, and then I think he ended probably just before midnight. But, you know, that was a nice show. And then I'll hop to Cleveland. I don't think I've told this story yet, but so after coming from New York, you know, the Wild Innocent Night and the River Night, I'm like, Jesus, that was amazing. This is like, I can't top that. That's like as close to blowing 5 beautiful women at the same time as I'm ever going to get. Like, the River Night was that good. And I jokingly, I'll tell the Jon Stewart story, and then I'll go into Cleveland. So that night I was on the right side of the stage, left of Bruce, probably about 20 rows up in seats, because getting a floor seat for the Garden is very hard. I've done it once, but the rest has been me seated at Madison Square Garden for the most part. But I I happen to just see people, and it's just like, to my left is Mike Nichols and Diane Sawyer, literally 4 people to my left. And then farther down, probably another 2 people, was James Gandolfini and his Sopranos posse. Edward Burns and Christy Turlington were there. Jon Stewart was there, I found out later. Carolyn Kennedy, Senator Bill Bradley, for all you politicos out there. And then I met Max's son and his wife. And I fanboyed out over Jay, which I regret to this day, because I'm just like, I was excited. And I'm just like, dude, get your if I were him, I'd be like, get your fucking grubby hands off me. I understand you're a fan, but there are boundaries. But he took it well. I'll always give him that. But then he's talking to Jon Stewart, and then he gives me his phone. And immediately I'm like, I've never owned a smartphone in my fucking life. So I took the worst picture that went up on early Twitter with just, he joked, he's like, yeah, this is going to be my bar mitzvah card for, my family. And everyone had a good chuckle. And then I ran into comedian Jeff Ross at the end. And then, like, every New Yorker is like, why is this fucking D-list comedian at the Madison Square Garden? I had a good chuckle over that, because typical New Yorkers, like, you're only as big as they want to make you. And I was just like, this is crazy. And then, I go to Cleveland, so I drive the next day. I leave New York City, and then it's about, a 6.5 hour drive to Cleveland. And I take a day to kind of come down from all of that, because it's just, you go through a Bruce show that's like almost, 4 hours, and you're just like on a high, and you're like, okay, I need to rest for the next one, so you don't get sick or anything. Then I knew there was a group of people that was going to come, so I ended up meeting with them. It was probably about 9 people total. So someone got a room at the Holiday Inn, and he was mixing drinks in his suite. He worked for Air Canada. He lives in Tampa. And then my wife, who I did not know who was going to be there, ended up being in the same room. And I looked at her, and I was, taken aback. She was also, I think, 23 at the time. And I was like, okay, this is freaking weird. And I'm like, how old are you? Just kind of jokingly, but kind of serious. I'm like, you look really young. I'm like, I don't believe you, what you just told me. So I had her take out her ID and show me directly. Like, all right. Then I kind of picked her up and, flirted with her a little bit. I wouldn't even call it flirting, because it just wasn't great. And then we all had floor tickets. So half of us, I'd say a quarter of us actually got close to the floor, or at least by the pit. I don't think anyone got in the pit except maybe one person. And then the rest of us hung back in the back of the floor, where you actually had room and you didn't feel claustrophobic from all the people, around you. And you're by the soundboard, you're bopping and, having a grand old time. And then, the show happens, because I'm thinking, okay, he's done the Garden. There's going to be a come down. Oh, hell no, it wasn't. Cleveland's been a hotbed for Bruce for, since the late 70s. And we get to probably, I'd say, about midway through the show, and then he goes into Back in Your Arms. So my wife was a little bit ahead of everyone else, and she just stood there. She was still. But I could tell something was wrong with her, and I found out later she, was crying during the song. It's like the song she did not want to hear, because there was a little bit of backstory to why she had went there, or came to Cleveland actually to see the show, but I'll get into that a little bit later. And I wanted to go and console her, but I didn't. Got through the show, and then later on, I found out she was interested in this one guy, and he really wasn't, and kind of broke her heart. And then she came to the show taking in all that baggage, and, you know, meeting me and then being around everyone else kind of perked her up. And then we get towards the end of the show where there's this drunk dude trying to hit on anything that moved. He would have fucked a pole if he wanted to. Like, that's how drunk this dude was. And so we get to American Land, which is towards the end of the show, and I'm dying. I'm still tired from, you know, my trips and stuff, and I'm kind of winding down. But I'm like, you know what? It's my last show for 5 days. I'm going to go back home, and then I'm going to be back on the road again at some point soon. But I'm going to get my fun out of this. And I go up to him, I'm like, hey, dude, you want to dance? Yeah, let's fucking dance. He's like, yeah, dude, let's fucking dance. So we're dancing like idiots, and everyone around us is just looking at us like we're completely insane. And we just dance like an idiot for, you know, 2 minutes of the song. And then fast forward, show ends. And then this dude selling flowers outside of the queue. And I go, he's like, flowers for a girl, man, flowers for a girl, flowers for a girl. I'm like, no, man. I'm like, so I literally gave him $4 just to go away. And then his immortal words, and I will never forget it to this day. He's like, God will bless you. God will bless you. Thank you so much, man. Blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, we all get around in a circle, and, you know, we took in the night of what we did. And I'm just like, I'm exhausted. I need to fucking go home. Back to my hotel, which was this shitty, you know, 70s type hotel that they just spent the least amount of money to get. It was like a $50 hotel. It's on the outskirts of downtown Cleveland. Surprised I didn't get killed. But you know what? It's what you had to do in order to make it work, and you did. And then my wife was going to go home and go back to her hotel in downtown. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm going to walk you home. And I'll walk you back to the hotel. And then, so we walk back to I walk her back to the hotel, get her to the front, and I'm like, we had a really nice hug, and I wanted to lean in to kiss her, but I didn't. But it was palpable. You could feel it. And then I turned around and left. I wanted to look back, but I didn't look back. And then I went back to my car and then got to my hotel, and I just, you know, it was really fucking weird. I've never felt anything like that before. And, you know, then I go back home, you know, go through my, go to shows, and we become Facebook friends, you know, at the time, you know, before Facebook got completely insane, where it was just finding people. And, you know, we kept chatting back and forth, but there was nothing. It was just very friendly. And then she went to Paris to visit her sister, who was over there for a study abroad. And I literally texted her the entire Buffalo set list as I'm watching the show. And I gave her poor cell phone bill, I think, was like $350. And she's just like, she's like, I didn't care. I was happy to stay, you know, hear the songs. And I told her too. I'm like, fuck Paris. Come to Buffalo. You'd have a great time. She's like, I think my family would disown me if I didn't go to Paris with them. And I'm like, okay. And then, you know, fast forward about 7 months later, she revealed her feelings for me. I got in a car. I drove 2 days to California. I met her parents before we started dating. Is the most fucked up thing I've ever done. And, you know, I felt I needed to do it, but it was all because of that. And that's kind of how and then we did long distance for 2 years. And then, you know, 10 years later, almost, you know, I've been here in California. So that's like the crazy, that's the crazy shit that this man tells you to do, not directly, but it happens. So, yeah, that's the story how I met my wife, and, you know, how we were in the same place at the first time and didn't know it. And then about a year and a half later, we happened to be in the same spot, same place. And, you know, the rest is history.
That is indeed, you know, as Max said earlier, it's like the soundtrack of your lives, you know, and there's like a situation or a song for like everything. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, none of us have a song though. Like Frankie's got there's 2 songs with the word Frankie in the title.
Well, I don't think he's the girl in the outtake Frankie from Born of the USA, but it's close enough. It's a good summer song, very, very much
Yeah.
so.
I'm watching him here. He's got his video on. I'm trying to involve him in the conversation. I'm watching him on the call here.
Well, I'm just waiting for you guys to go. All right, we don't know where to go from here, and I'm gonna say, all right, well, let's just wrap up part 1. We'll come back with part 2 next week.
No, I will harken back to the infamous Travis Rain. No, the Zaha episode, the second Zaha episode with when we made him feel bad about not coming on with Travis and myself. And I remember Travis sending me the message that he sent to Chris, and I was crying. I was at work, and he's just like, this is exactly what I sent him. It was like a Facebook message, and he's just like, fuck. And then he takes about 4 spaces, you. And it was just absolutely hilarious. And then Chris, the night we recorded, would go like every 5 minutes. And he'd go back and listen to the episode and be like, yeah, Frankie thinks he's too fucking dumb, Marks. And Grant, it was late for Frankie. I mean, we started at 8 o'clock my time.
It was 2 nights in a row of that.
Yeah, exactly. You had 2 straight nights. Then you had the kids that weekend, right?
Yeah.
So that was like, I can understand it. And Frankie was a trooper through it. I mean, we did.
So I'm doing this again tomorrow night as well.
Who's coming on tomorrow night?
Tomorrow is Chris Zaha and Rick Nathan.
Oh my God. That is gonna break some shit. Oh, that's fucking great.
We will be in Winston-Salem tomorrow night. Christine's last military retreat. One of Dr. Spiker's last military outings.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I will talk to you separately sometime and talk about fatherhood.
Yeah,
congrats, dude.
Thank you. I mean,
that's great.
Mac's gonna be a grandfather for the first time, so that's a pretty big deal for all of us. And
He told me earlier. He said, "I'm just praying that the baby is happy, healthy, and has a little rhythm."
Oof.
That would be it.
Holy shit, dude! Wow, bro. Wow.
Everything I did with my firstborn,
Baby. That's what it is.
I mean that's a whole nother. But and it's funny that you mentioned that, because as we know, going back to Bruce for a moment, the 92 and 93 stuff where he talks about being a parent. The first day, one of the first things I did when we found out Christine was pregnant was I turned on the stuff. I turned on Real World. I listened to Living Proof. Living Proof has kind of become my anthem. I know the day I see that baby that everything's going to make perfect sense.
Which version of Real World did you listen to? Did you listen to the Krysic solo one, or did you listen to the actual other band, full band version?
There's a bootleg I have from the show we saw him in Pittsburgh on the Devils and Dust tour that is that beautiful arrangement by himself on the piano. And he even admits, I think the one show, I forget what it was, he goes, when we recorded this first time, we kind of fucked it up. So he goes, we're going to make it right. He goes, I'm going to try and make it right by doing this one. And, list all this stuff, although I still think Pony Boy is one of the worst songs he's ever committed to a record. But, Living Proof, since the day we found out, has kind of been one of my anthems. Because, I guess it's how you feel at certain points. And I don't know, I guess it's different for everybody, but I keep going back to that one. Those.
So what about Let's Be Friends from The Rising? That's up there too.
It's actually funny you mentioned that. It's probably my least favorite Bruce song.
There's a reason why it's only been played once live too.
So, and I can tell you one person on this call is not a fan of Hungry Heart either.
I'm not surprised by that.
And it's not. And
I don't like the cheesy shit.
I had one Bruce fan swear to me that he hated Ramrod and he hated I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. And I looked at him square in the face. I'm like, are you human? or do you need a fucking lobotomy, because that's absolutely asinine.
Yeah, for on both counts.
Yeah, I know. I looked at it, and this is a guy who'd been to over 100 shows. Great guy. I met him in Chicago. Wonderful person. Works for Salesforce. Wonderful man. But I looked at him and I'm like, when he played Ramrod, and I think in Steensboro, I looked at him and I just laughed at him. I'm like, you're gonna get the cat stringing song according to you.
Ramrod is nowhere near the worst song on the river. So I'm not a fan of You Can Look, but I will put Ramrod miles ahead of that.
Oh, Ramrod's great. It's when a reunion tour, that one is really good. I mean, River, it's great too. And then he kind of sparingly played it in between.
The Rising tour, the one where they had the never-ending outro and everybody left the stage except for Roy, and Roy kept going, and then they would file off the stage and Roy'd still be playing. They'd file back on the stage and keep going. It was like 15 minutes long.
If you better check yourself if you don't like Ramrod. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, because I think that was the version of it where Roy just kept going, and they'd go off the stage, they'd come back on, and then Bruce would count him back in, and him and Stevie would be mugging everywhere. So I think.
And they were all shaking their asses when they went off the stage. It was great.
Yeah, Bruce did the butt shake, is what I like to say. And I remember it going back to Chris, what I said, did you cup his ass or squeeze it? I remember vividly, I think my first show, someone like cupped his ass and almost like caressed it, but he did the little butt shake, like towards, wanting hands, was always pretty funny to me.
Okay, so Frankie, if Bruce Springsteen was shaking his ass right there in front of you, and you were given the choice to either grab it or cup it, what would you do?
Grab or cup?
Squeeze or cup, either way.
I'd go for the smack.
Oh, you're going to go the nuclear.
Okay, that's actually a million times better. Okay, that is actually the best answer.
I do have a serious Bruce question for you. Has he ever covered Broken Radio live that you guys know?
If he has, it's probably with Jesse Mullen at probably a small show. I think he has done it like once or twice.
Who Jesse Mullen
has not been live. It hasn't
probably
been
up on the Jersey Shore somewhere.
Probably in a Jersey bar, like somewhere.
The Wonder Bar, or
Oh. So, speaking of the pony, I will air this story out to be told. I'm surprised Mac didn't bring this one up. So, our first ever trip to the Stone Pony in New Jersey, to see the B Street Band. They hardly ever play there, so it was like a big deal. And the Stone Pony is like a mecca. We walked by it this first time we were actually in it. So we see the backstages and everything like that. We see the couches. There were some beat up couches, and we're just sitting there going, man, what kind of dirty shit took place back here throughout all these years? And we're sitting there, and we are sitting in the corner where there is a big photo of Clarence Clemens and Bam Bam Bigelow. God rest his soul. And so Max starts ordering shots of Jameson. I decide after a few drinks, I'm going to try and keep up with him.
No, we were doing shots of Jameson way before we sat at that table.
No, I wasn't. I was drinking like Jack and Coke, like that, and then doing a couple beers and anything like that, because I think they were giving out free beers backstage, and I think that's what led to me drinking beer. And you're like, hey, let's do shots of Jameson. I'm like, oh, sure, I'll try it. It's my first time doing it. So after the Vans first set, I may or may not have vomited all over the table in the Stone Pony.
Liquor before beer, and you're in the clear, brother. That's what you got to go by.
And we got thrown out because he couldn't hold his shit.
But you know what? Probably join the annals of people that have gotten kicked out of the Stone Pony. I said, you know what? It's like maybe at some point Bruce got kicked out of the Pony. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, maybe at some point, I joined some notorious people who got kicked out for much worse.
Well, Chris, I even drank Myers under the table that night.
You drank everybody under the table. I mean, Jim.
And then I drove home.
Yeah.
2.5 hours.
Jim, what's her name's ex-husband was in pretty bad shape that night too. So
yeah, he left sick, and
Yeah.
Myers lived 15 minutes from there, and he had to call his wife to come pick him up. Great stuff.
But
yeah, I wasn't going to embarrass you by telling you that you can't hold your Jamesons.
well, this was 8 years ago. Now I can hold it just fine. Now I drink it all the damn time. Hell, when I came home from FanFest, I somehow found out I had 2 bottles already home. So I had 3 bottles of Jameson that 3 bottles of Jameson in the house at the same time.
Yeah, I remember the another story when I was in Toronto visiting a good friend of mine. We went to this kind of Bruce place, but he was an Elvis fan, but he's a huge Bruce fan too. The Cadillac Lounge in Toronto, which I don't believe is there anymore, but the owner had met him and showed me a video of Bruce being very drunk on tequila, taking tequila shots after a show. I think somewhere in New Jersey, from what I remember, and he's showing it to me because I think that night Joe Grishecki was playing at the venue, and then there was this other cover band, which was actually really. It wasn't a cover band. It was a band. They did covers. They did like a few Paul McCartney and Wings songs, and then a few of their own. I actually had a CD from them, which I wish I'd have never lost, because their original song was actually really good. It was just, maybe about 40 or 50 people, but, we're reminiscing about Bruce and having a few drinks and, having a crack here and there. But, those fun little nights where you can reminisce about things. And, it happened to be in, the middle of Toronto, which was, kind of funny to me and all the other stuff. But there's, oh shit, so many stories, just so many fun stuff. I mean, I'm envious of anyone who has gone to the Stone Pony. It was funny when I first started seeing, like, what the fuck is the Stone Pony? Like, what the hell is this? Asbury Park, and I'm like, and then over time I figured that out, because
if you're not a Jersey music fan, you'd still be saying, what the fuck's the Stone Pony?
It's pretty much, yes.
We so about a year after that happened, me and my best friend went to see Cake at the Asbury Park Summer Stage outdoors. So we're sitting outside. We're sitting inside the bar and we're having a few drinks. I'm looking around. I'm making sure my picture is on some wall or something like that with people who got kicked out, not allowed back in. Luckily, it was not. But that was, and I'm like, oh. And she goes, "Are you okay?" I said, "Bad memory." She goes, "Do you want to know?" No, Jamie, I do not.
No, thank you, but I will like to stay here this time.
Which turned into a funny joke. She remembered this years later at my stepmother's funeral. She goes, "Come here." So she takes me outside and hands me the flask that I had on my wedding day. She goes, "I figured you needed this." She remembered the Jameson story. She goes, "Don't throw it up this time, though." She goes, "I know you love it. Don't throw it up this time." So, but
it's good when they remember.
She remember that 7 years later. So, well, Frankie looks like he's getting sleepy over there. Might be getting past his bedtime here shortly.
Well,
yeah,
it's my bedtime, dude.
It's my goal was 10 o'clock, so we got 5 more minutes. If anybody would like to give us some last thoughts on Bruce or the impact Bruce has made on your life or the live shows, then let's go ahead and go around, and we'll start with Papa Spiker.
Well, I think I'll just echo what I said before. I mean, the live shows, if you haven't seen him in concert, you can't really appreciate him. But, his songs and his music has been, the soundtrack of, of my life. And like Chris said, with the baby coming, I'm sure, Living Proof's going to be his song for a while. And, I mean, I'm thankful that, he's been who he has, and, and he's a good man, and, I'm thankful that he's been doing 50 years of music, and, he is an American classic. And,
there is no one else that really compares to him as being like, as far as an American singer, songwriter, performer.
Well, I mean, Paul Simon is a good songwriter, but as far as a live performer and live performances, no, I don't think there's anybody that matches him.
Yeah. That's why I said it that way. I mean, it's
The closest thing I would say to Bruce fans would be Grateful Dead fans, just based on their loyalty to the artist. That's the closest thing. And there's been comparisons.
But Bruce is one person, and he and I'm sure maybe there's been collaborations with these three. I don't know, but you can't think of one other person who has toured, done 20 albums, never had a number one. However, one of his songs did go number one.
Blinded by the Light.
By him. But it wasn't his version.
Yeah, no, well, he never had a number one on his own. The closest one was Dancing in the Dark that got to number two in, I think, either 84 or 85. Other than that, he's not gotten he has not had a number one like Talk Sing.
But Blinded by the Light, well, not his version,
man. Cutting loose like a douche.
And
That's right. One word change.
You change one word, it becomes an instant classic and number one hit. People forget that he wrote it. It's the first song on his first album.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm thinking that if we were sitting at a table with some beers in front of us, we could talk all night about this stuff.
Oh, Jesus. I mean, literally, I coined it. I could probably equal the hours I've already put into this podcast for the 3 episodes I've been on, and probably a little bit more. And that's not a joke. I mean, to me, you could go from the beginning, you'd go your favorite bootleg or what show you'd like to see released. There's so many things. There's so many avenues where it's like, you becoming a fan is always the fun story. Like when I meet a Bruce fan, you usually start going down. There's questions. You go down the list and all this other stuff where it's a lot of good memories. And, it's fun to see a lot of the people who have followed them for a long time because you get to hear their really amazing stories for when they started out, and also the newer ones that are the person who's seeing their show for the first time, and you see their reaction afterwards, like, that is seriously one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Like, yep, I remember that, however many years ago, to see, what all the hubbub was about. And then when you saw it and you got it and you felt it, you were never the same after that.
Everything changes, it's like your life changes. Bruce is there, it's been the sound, as we've said, it's been the soundtrack for so many things. It's becoming the soundtrack, different things in my life. I mean, we had difficulty picking out a Springsteen song for our wedding because we could not narrow it down to just one. And that, and it's, it gets difficult so much. I don't know if anybody's been that prolific to where you can apply something to every single situation, and he still continues to be relevant. I can't wait till people are covering him like they're covering Bob Dylan every which way, but and negotiations have already begun as to when he tours next year in 2023. If Baby Spiker is going to stay with Mama, or if I'm dropping Baby Spiker off somewhere, because I kind of want to follow him just in case this is.
I will watch Baby Spiker.
And I'm going to fly to Florida. I'm going to take Frankie to his first show, because I think Frankie will have a whole new opinion of it once he sees this phenomenon live.
I'm down.
Yeah, we need bootlegs to you, Frankie. That at some point, I'll probably send some. We
hook Frankie up with these endless shows. He's even listened to Bruce forever now, because the amount of shows that, like, oh, you've never heard this, or here you need to hear the 1978 Prove It All Night. You need to hear this or that, or here's an 88 show you need to hear. And
the beautiful thing is the archive series, which is, I mean, the last one they just released made me so happy that there is a version of Roy Orbison's Crying that is absolutely,
oh my God.
Insane.
I looked it up on YouTube and I'm like, this is worth the price of the boot.
Yeah, exactly. I was hoping they were going to release it when, I think it was 2 years ago, they released the last night of that Garden Stand from 88. And I was just like, okay, I got Lonely Teardrops and I'm really excited about that, but I need to hear Roy Orbison's Crying because I've heard it on bootlegs and now I get to hear it, you know, in its mixed glory now, where it's like there's little imperfections and it sounds fucking great.
Yes. So
Well, this is one of the things that I love about the brothership is that not only do we talk about wrestling, but we talk about music, sports, television, and then we also talk about what we love in music. And you guys have entertained us for a couple hours now on Bruce Springsteen. And I bet had we announced that we were going to talk about Bruce Springsteen, we should have got even more people on, which would have probably been a shit show. So,
I was surprised how many brother shippers were Bruce fans, and there's some in Stick to Wrestling too as well, because I know McAdam's a fan and other stuff. And I was surprised about a lot of people who like Nebraska, which, you know, even if you're a non Bruce Springsteen fan, I don't know if you're going to go to that, but that's great because Nebraska is an amazing album. Turns 40 this year, and it's always fun to kind of reminisce about stuff that not only makes you happy, but when you got to experience it and the things that came after that, this is really special to talk about. And it's like before Chris and Mac got on, I was making small talk with Frankie. And it's like, I can't remember the last time I talked this heavy of Bruce, which I probably could have done on my episode, but I didn't want to, I wanted a more well-rounded picture of myself as opposed to that.
Frankie, sorry, continue.
Yeah, no worries. But for the most part, it's a lot of fun to kind of, it's not just, you like to think it's just your story, but when you're with other Bruce fans, it's kind of our story. It's how we came to become a fan of his, and then how it continually impacts our lives.
I mean, for Frankie's, I've been on the podcast a few times, and Frankie's hit all my great loves. I mean, we've talked wrestling, we've talked Springsteen, we've talked My Wonderful Wife. I'm expecting him to be like, hey, when you want to talk about superheroes and comic books, that's like the next one. And, so I'm thankful for this outlet for Frankie for allowing, me to share these stories and these tales. And he's kind of pried a little bit on that. He's asked a little bit about that, but I think there's a lot more I can, divulge in that because it's a very diverse topic. He goes, man, I want to hear some of your convention stories that you talk about. I'm like, that's a podcast in and upon itself.
Get Zaha on and tell everybody how he sat in the Batmobile.
I was just about to say, and then there needs to be a topic all about people who've heard the story about Zaha sitting in the Batmobile, or the 2 times he met Kevin Nash.
Pretty much. I mean, at this point, good Lord, the man is so infamous at this point. He could go on any podcast and people would instantly gravitate to it because the man is so insane, deranged, and lovable all in one sitting.
Yes.
So we've talked about a great man this whole this whole episode here. Let's don't ruin it by talking about an asshole, some fat mark.
I was just about to say, we're going from talking about Bruce Springsteen to Chris Zaha. I mean, come on.
He
great
hit a level.
So, fellas, thank you all for your time. I enjoyed hearing you guys talk about something you're all so passionate about.
Yeah, I think the next one we might have to go into favorite live shows. That might elicit a lot of conversation.
Yeah, you guys will do it again next week. I'm happy to. The week after next. Yeah, just let me know when y'all can line up your schedules, and we'll make it happen.
Sounds
good.
All right. Thank you all so much. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
Later.
All right, Ariel, we are back. What's up?
The Spiker Brothers sound like a really cool tag team name.
Right?
Right.
And they would,
yeah.
they would, as a heel, they'd bring out the golden spike and spike someone in the eye.
Yeah.
And they get fired.
Well, yeah, that too. I might make them on WWE 2K22 if I ever have the chance.
Oh, wow.
On my PlayStation 4 or something.
What characters have you made?
Well, first of all, I got to buy the game.
You haven't even. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, well, see, the thing is, I still play 2K19.
Yeah.
and that's like I still play that like crazy. Well, I mean when I have time. Right now I'm playing Fire Pro Wrestling. So, but yeah, I don't know. One of these days when I get back into like playing video games when I have time or something, I'll buy 22 and probably start making some people, some brother shippers or something.
Yeah, if you ever get time, I'm gonna have you record more. I'm gonna do. We're gonna do the next podcast is gonna be Solo Confessions by Ariel Agbalog.
Dude, no. That's no, not for free. I'm not gonna no, but yeah, I should have my own like little, I don't know, side show podcast once a week or once a month with my confessions of whatever.
I agree. I agree.
No.
We should make a segment.
Ugh. Can we just do like non-Florida man or not? Wyoming man or not? No, but what else do we have going on, Frankie?
Let's see. I put over Barry and Jeff. Check. You know, one thing that's interesting to me is that, and I'm going to be very vague here on purpose. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw one wrestling group where they didn't want to talk about another wrestling podcaster in that group or their event that they're hosting. I thought, man, that is so crazy. Can't you just let people love the wrestling that they love?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, it's crazy. Here's another thing that drives me crazy too. I'm sorry if I'm going to old man rant, but when people call someone a money mark, gosh, that pisses me off. It pisses me off really, really, really bad because basically they're shitting on this person for having money. And it's like, okay, well, you're just a mark. So would you rather be one that had money or one that's just a regular old Joe Schmo?
Yeah.
Now, there's nothing wrong with being Joe Schmo. Joe Schmo, we love you.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're going to be shitting on someone, don't shit on someone because they've got more money than you and they're just a money mark. Big freaking deal. They earned their money. They got their money. And if they want to spend it on wrestling crap, then they can spend it on wrestling crap. They want to spend it hanging out with the superstars. Guess what? That's exactly what we do when we go to Legends Fan Fest. We play to beat these people. So we are small time money marks. Yeah. So it just drives me crazy how around the wrestling business, it's probably true of all other businesses, that people just want to shit on people for the sake of shitting on people. Shout out to Joe Christie because we're saying shit a lot. But to me, it just drives me crazy how petty and childish that people around this business can be. I've just wanted to shit on someone or be jealous of them or whatever it is that, we don't like this person, so we're just going to pick on them.
Yeah.
This podcast host doesn't like this person, so we're just going to trash them. And I'm very thankful that we don't have that in the brothership.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So anyway, the brothership is awesome. We love the brothership. Thank you all for the downloads that you give us each and every week and listening to your fellow brothershipers talk. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think that we've done a pretty good job of having a various assortment of the brothershipers and the conversations of the brothershipers.
Yeah, I think we're the only podcast in the world that has guests that nobody else in the world would know of. It's it's like random guys. Like my girlfriend, for instance, she doesn't know any of them, but like everybody has an interesting story. I learned a lot about our guests, our shippers, I should say, and they're so much fun to listen to. And there's no other podcast like ours that we don't have famous people on. We don't have celebrities and all that stuff. We have
And we're not asking the same dumb questions that you can find from the shoot interviews on YouTube.
No,
It's
absolutely.
when I got the idea to do this, it's very altruistic. I'm not trying to make money. I just want the brother shippers that I know and love to people to hear their stories, because they're so interesting, and their stories meant a lot to me, hearing their stories and interacting with them. So
Right.
I just want to share that.
Yeah, and I love it because a lot of them I just know from the Facebook group, and you don't know their story on there. You just comment, but when you sit down and you put a voice to the face of like their Facebook picture and everything like that, but when you actually put a voice to that picture and you hear where they came from, how they were brought up, their love of wrestling, how it manifested in the beginning. It's so cool. It's so cool to hear all of that. I always hear wrestlers talk about their stuff. I mean, they've been on various other podcasts that I've listened to, so it's usually the same story over and over again. But every week we have someone new here that has their own interesting life story to tell, their own, all that stuff. And I am thankful and I'm grateful that we have such cool people to talk to. I mean, I only talk to one person, Michael Herrick, but cool people that you talk to and that we all could listen to every week. And it's so great. I love it. Thank you, Frankie.
Yeah,
I love you, man.
Oh man. Oh man.
No, I don't. Just kidding. No, but seriously, thank you for this podcast. I love being a part of it. I love hearing everybody each and every week, or our guests each and every week. I listen to every podcast that we do, even though I don't like listening to myself talk. I try to fast forward those parts. But yeah, thanks again.
Well, it's we're definitely getting better, and I would like more members of the brothership to listen. We've got 2,100 members in the group there. If I could get 1/3 of those to listen, I think that would be tremendous. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that we would be able to get some more people. Not because I care about the downloads, the likes, or the whatevers. It's just because I want people to hear how cool my wrestling nerd friends are.
Yeah. The ones that know more wrestling than us two.
Way more.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And remember dates and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. Oof.
Well, cool, Ariel. I think that is about where we're going to wrap her up today. Thank you for doing a short and sweet one. We've got a long interview coming up, or that we just heard there with the Spikers and Matt Crowder talking about Bruce Springsteen. And I think we'll probably bring them on and have them do it again. I know there's some other Springsteen fans in the group. I know Mick Foley, not that he's in the group, but he is a Springsteen fan as well.
How about all the Kiss fans?
Oh man, you know what? That's a great idea. We should have a Kiss conversation.
Yeah, because Jaworski, you're a Kiss fan too, right?
I was as a kid. Yeah, I saw my cousin. She'll never listen to this podcast, so I'll say this. So she's a few years older than me. She had went to a Kiss concert in Raleigh. I guess this past weekend or sometimes recently. And she posted it with her sister and some other person. And when I saw these ladies who are older than me, I remember the opening lyrics to Cold Gin by Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes like this. Get up and get your grandma out of here. It's okay to laugh because it's my It's my cousin, and I see these three older ladies at this Kiss concert, and it's like they could be. I mean, I could be a grandparent. I don't know if I told you this, but the other day I figured it out that if I had a kid when I was 18, the kid would be 30 now.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's true.
So I could be a grandpa. I mean, the people that I graduated high school with, they're grandparents. People that I was in the military with, they're grandparents. So I mean, but it's just weird because I just don't see myself that way.
Yeah, well, I have a friend that's a grandparent already. She's only like 41.
Yeah.
She started young. So
well, if you have a kid when you're 20, and then that kid has a kid when they're 20, boom, there it is.
There you go.
You're 41 with a grandkid.
Yeah. Sad. No, just kidding. It's so crazy. I still think I'm 16 years old.
You know what? This is the truth. This is a shoot. I'm not making light of any situation, so please, nobody cancel me. But it has been said that when you have some sort of trauma, that your maturity stays at that level until you overcome it.
Wow.
Well, so let's just say if you have a big event, maybe you are stuck at that maturity level or that mentality. Because Ariel, I am exactly the same. I'll think of myself as I'm walking in like a 25, 26-year-old with a 25 or 26-year-old body. And then I pass by a mirror and I'm like, holy crap. This is, 22 years later, I know. But, when I was 25, 26, I was in really good shape and very handsome. And now I'm like, whew. Oh boy. But in my head, I still think that way. I still think like I did when I was, 25, 26.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
I mean,
so what's your age in your head?
In my head, I'm still like 17, 18 years old. It's because I never wanted to really grow up, I guess. I mean, I do adulting, but I didn't really see myself getting married or having like a family until later on in my 30s. Then I started thinking about that. But when I was younger, I was like, well, this is I'll see how far I can go with this. And 20 years later, those 20 years went by quickly. That's the thing that kind of like messes with my mind is like 20 years went by quick. And then the 90s were like 30 years ago. Before, right? To me, 30 years ago was like the 60s. But, and it's just, time just goes by really quickly, and I'm not ready for it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I thought the other day, I said, I spent 13 years in Wilmington, and it did not seem that long. It was, really just flying.
Yeah.
Flying by.
Yeah. It's that's true. I mean, I had hair back then and I miss that.
You used to be Mexican?
I used to. You saw my pictures, right? With hair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez.
You said throwback to my Mexican years.
Exactly. I still get spoken to in Spanish once in a while. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know some words like food related Spanish words, but yeah, it's no though, but yeah, time went by really quickly.
Well, I'm gonna teach you some Spanish here, okay? So if someone speaks to you in Spanish, just say "No mames way."
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Don't say that. You'll get shot.
Don't say. I'm gonna get shot. Exactly. I live here in the east side of San Jose. Yeah. Don't know. I can't even. No. A certain colors I can't even wear here. So yeah, but
but by the way, I did watch a video of what's it called? Side kick, side swipe, side. The things you guys have out there. The
Sideshows.
Sideshow. Yes, the sideshow.
Yeah.
But this was. I'm going to guess it was Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
And it was these guys had these cars with like these long spikes coming out of the rims.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Wow, that's sad.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so one of those sideswiped, ironically, at another one, and they were having some beef.
Ooh.
Yeah, they were just having a conversation. But
So
they kept calling each other bitch ass.
Oh well, yeah. Of course. Were they the cars have big wheels, big tires?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the term ghost riding the whip?
No.
Okay, you should do that too. You should look that one up.
Okay, here we go. Ghost
riding the whip.
It's a movie.
Oh, it's not a movie. Okay, well, I wasn't referring to the movie.
Oh, you're talking about something on YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube or whatever. It's
okay.
It's a thing they do with the outside of their cars. While it's.
I've got an Airbnb commercial here.
Oh well, that's cool.
Oh, so the car is rolling. Yeah, they're on top of it.
Yeah. On top or next to it.
There's no one driving.
How's no one driving? It's on drive or neutral. I should say it's one of those gears and it's just rolling. And they're doing stupid shit outside of the car itself. And yeah, that's called ghost riding the whip.
Wow. This is in Vallejo.
Mm-hmm. Valley of the Hose. That's what we call it.
You, right? You do speak some Spanish.
Yeah, there's a that used to be a thing several years ago. Ghost riding the whip.
Here they are doing a school bus.
Ooh, that sounds dangerous.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Are there any sane people in California?
No, unfortunately. It's like the West. It's like Florida on the West Coast. You know.
You are right. You are right.
Yeah.
Man, every day that I drive here, I just think, damn, these people are crazy.
Mm-hmm. Same thing here.
I mean, they are crazy.
Yeah. California drivers suck too. So
I mean, you've got enough space in between you and the other car so that they stop, you don't ram them, and then someone just comes right over. No blinker, no nothing. You know, four-way stop signs. No one knows how to navigate. The other day I was coming home with my son, and so the car to my left went. So therefore, it was my turn. Well, the car across from that car thought it was their turn. So when I started to go, this teenage-looking girl, you know, starts throwing up hand gestures at me. And so I said, rolled down my window, and I said, hey, you go around in a circle, right? You just take turns. So I would go next, then you would go next. And she's like, just go. Well, you know what? Somebody has got to explain to these dumbasses how to navigate a four-way stop.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that scares me. Four-way stops scare me now because you never know if someone's going to just blow past the stop sign. Yeah, blow right through it, or do a California roll, and then just have you heard of California roll?
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay, yeah.
Or slow down and look and go.
Yeah, exactly. And or just not know when their turn is, or they think it's their turn when it's really not. So four-way stops always scare the bejesus out of me. I really don't like them.
Well, good. I'm glad we got that in here. Well, thank you, Ariel. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Brother Shippers. If you'd like to be a guest on Broken Kayfabe, the unofficial after show, Broken Kayfabe with Baljan and Barry, please message Ariel or myself, and we'll be happy to get you on. And thank everybody for the downloads. Thank Matt Crowder for his hilarious intros. Hope you all enjoy them. If you got some ideas for them, hit Matt up. Or if you too would like to do an intro, please just send me a video in my Messenger, Facebook Messenger. I'm very easy to find. My name is Frankie. I don't say my last name because I got stalkers, but hey, you can find me. All right. Thanks, Ariel. Enjoy the rest of your day. Get some rest. Go to work and work your ass off, bud.
Will do. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.